All right, everybody, welcome to the stream. Let's get started. Um, First of all, what a mess. I don't know what's going on right now. Um, uh, it looks like there's a whole bunch of stuff that's not installed, and it's just causing a mess of this workspace. And I'm out of credits. Great. Um, so let's see. PNPM exec nx dash dash version. Uh, Cannot find module tslib. Of course we can't find module tslib. So then it tried to install tslib. What mess did it make? Let's just revert everything it did here. Discard changes, yes. Okay. So at this point, we're going to pnpm store prune. We're going to prune the store. Actually, we're going to be watching a bunch of this. Okay, so it removed everything. So at this point, let's do pnpm, or not pnpm. Let's do rm. Let's remove the node modules. Get rid of that. All right, now we can get started with the story. I don't know what's going on with this namespace. Well, I think I do know what's going on. I think something that we upgraded is conflicting with Apollo and Prisma and Cypress and all of that other stuff. Because the packages that we have are way out of date. And so I think what we're going to have to do is take on those upgrades. So that's going to be fun. Today will be a lot of us probably staring at AI output, which, yay, as we try to get these things upgraded. There is a lot of stuff going on here. And what I want to get what I want to get done is I want to get everything. I don't want to remove that file. So this time I want to pnpm install no scripts, because this one seems to work. So if we install it with no scripts, that should give us the NX. And then once we've got NX back, we can start upgrading the rest of the stuff. I was trying to migrate NX to latest, and it was giving me this weird error saying that it can't get the terminal width, which is really weird. That may help us track down the issue. But yeah, last week I wanted to do some streaming after work, but my wife was sick a bunch, and when she gets sick, that basically means, yeah. See, this is. So Cypress is a problem here. But we don't have any Cypress tests. So let's pnpm remove Cypress. And Um, let's just pull up anti-gravity. And we are not going to be doing anything over here. So let's just say, got, I have an issue where we can't pnpm install. Can you fix it? And we're gonna try out Gemini today. Hey, yo, Halternet, welcome to the stream. Anyway, so my wife was sick, and it was a dance competition week for my youngest. And that means that we were traveling to a city in central Utah called Nephi. Um, and she had a solo that she did on Thursday, and then Friday morning, she had to be at the school by 6:45 a.m. Or not Friday, Saturday morning. So Thursday, I took her to Nephi. She danced her solo. She did really well. Scored very, very well, and got an award for her scores. Then yesterday, my wife was going to be taking her. They were going to get up at 5:30 a.m., drive to Lehigh, have her compete, and then come back. Well, my wife was sick in the morning, and my daughter came downstairs to wake me up and ask if I could drive her. I'd only had about 2 hours of sleep at the time that she two and a half. I think I went to bed at like 3 a.m. My other daughter had been out late. She was supposed to tell me when she got home. She didn't, so I stayed up late, went and looked for her, and she was in her room. So I went to bed really, really late. Got woken up, wound up driving down there. I'm dead tired. Drove back, got my hair cut, and yeah, I slept like 10 hours last night. She did really well. On Thursday, so the way they score things is there's a silver, a gold, a high gold, and then a platinum. Platinum, they didn't give any platinums at this competition. Everybody was high gold. So my daughter got a high gold. She did very well on her solo. Um, and then on the team, both team dances got high golds. They did very, very well. And I'm not sure where their placement was because they didn't do the placements until that night at 7:30 p.m. And by then we were long gone. I wasn't going to stick around for 12 hours. Um, so yeah, she did really well. In fact, um, let me let me do this for let me do this for a second. Um, I'm looking for her. Um, I recorded her solo for her mom. Um, let's see if I can find that. Um, All right, let me bring this back. So this is her team after their last dance. Um, this is Kaylee right here. My youngest. So they just finished dancing and they were getting ready to go home. Here's the other one that my wife sent me. This is my dog looking for attention from my wife. Let me see. Over here. I'll get it running the force install right now. And let's see. Let's see if it uploaded the video I took. It did. So this is her solo. I call you again. I don't know why I keep on thinking that we're friends. If we really talk anymore, I'm sorry for that. Honestly, I never really loved you back. So right here, these are the judges. This lady is recording and streaming this online as she's going, and then the judges down here, they've got these microphones, and they're talking into the microphones, telling her how she's doing. You call me again. I don't know why it never seems to end. We really talk anymore, and it makes sense. So yeah, she's been doing that for. So the crazy thing, agent terminated due to error. Great. This is what I was afraid of. I don't know how I'm gonna fix this. So when she was about 3, maybe a little bit before, she came to my wife and I, and she was like, "Hey," she'd been watching like the dance shows and stuff. She was like, I want to do I want to do competitive dance. And so we searched for dance studios for her. And we were able to get her into some competitive dance. And so she's been dancing since she was 3. And it is something she loves. And as a dance dad, it's my job to fund her, drive her when her mom can't do stuff, and just make sure that she's, you know, that she's able to compete and do stuff like that. So I enjoy it a lot. Her dancing, so that style of dance is called contemporary dance, and she's gotten very, very good at that. She's almost as tall as I am, and she's got very long legs, so her lines and stuff, she stays very straight and things, and so it looks very impressive. So yeah. I'm not sure my walking was decent at 3. That's the thing. She was a strong baby, and sometimes you run into those strong babies that are just very, very. She had very good core control. She was walking before she was like walking at 11 months. Yeah, right around there. She just had very, very good core control, and she was very strong. She was standing up. When you would hold her, she'd be pushing against you and standing up and holding your fingers and standing up from just a very young age. And that's, yeah, she's just always been very strong. And I think that's just helped with her dancing and having a good, strong core. Definitely not things that people would accuse me of having right now. But she's, yeah, just been a little dancer, and we've loved it. Her older sister dances too. She started out as a competitive gymnast, and then moved from there. But yeah, something is going on with this namespace, and I just don't know what's broken on here. But yeah, that's what I was doing Thursday night, and then which is when I wanted to do some streaming, and then Saturday I was like, yeah, I'll just do a stream on Saturday and get this stuff cleaned up on Saturday, and then Saturday I was brain dead. I didn't even get the lawn mowed like I wanted to. Today it's raining, so that's not going to happen. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it. If I had recordings of her team, I would show you that her team together. They're an amazing group of girls, and just been doing very, very well. So yeah, it's looking for log paths right now. I think I'm just sacrificing tokens right now. And so something is very broken in the chain. So now it's looking at the Volta stuff. Oh, and now we're getting the so yeah. You're starting to like Proud Dad Sunday. I am a proud father. I've got 2 amazing daughters. I've got one daughter who she's working on getting man, this one's funny. So she's working on getting her CNA. And she had to do her first residency. She's still a high schooler at this point. But she had to go to a long-term care facility. And trying to keep this safe for families. But she was there doing her residency. It was her and another high school girl in class with her. And then the head nurse of the facility was taking them around, and they went to this guy. And this guy is a dirty old whatever, right? And he is talking to these high school girls about, have you ever gone to a bar and gotten drunk? Have you ever done this? Have you ever done that? And my daughter is just, she's like horrified. So it's pinning that. It's pinning the package manager. We'll try this. We'll see if this stuff works. And then in the agents. Oh, it's cleaning this up too in the agent stuff. Yeah, I like this. Anyway, I got distracted. So yeah, she's there. He's asking them if they've gotten drunk. Then it somehow comes out that my daughter dances, and he's like, "Oh, I would like you to dance naked for me," and blah blah blah. uh, she handled it well, and the head nurse he was like, "Oh, I'll write you up if you don't stop." As a father, I live in Utah with tons of sand and desert. I'd like to bury that old man out in the desert somewhere. It was kind of disgusting and gross, but the other thing to realize is that she's probably, or he's probably got some sort of dementia or something. So, there's probably something going on there. Yeah, CNA as in nursing. You just gave him or something. Seems like Kung Fu was in order. Yeah, it's I'm cutting out parts of the story because he was far more disgusting than that, and she handled it very well. And here's the problem. Here she is, a wide-eyed student in a long-term care facility. She doesn't really know how to stand her ground yet. She hasn't experienced that professional nursing environment yet. This is her very first time, right? And she's being exposed to that. I mean, her goal, and the reason she's getting her CNA is she's going to college, and in college she's going to study for pediatric nursing, which is the opposite extreme of sadness. She wants to go help children who are in the hospital. And I have a lot of respect for that because I don't know that I could subject myself to that daily as part of a job. I don't know that I could see children who are hurting and things like that. I don't I don't know that this is right. I fixed an issue. Looks like the project was recently migrated to PNPM. Updated the README. This commonly causes PNPM install to fail or complain using Core Pack or Volta. So let's see. So it specifically called out Volta, and that's part of what I'm worried about here. Oh, this is annoying. Why won't you pop up the bottom here? So it's claiming PNPM install should work. What it did shouldn't fix PNPM install, but maybe. Yeah. PNPM install. We'll do a -- force. Well, actually, I just want to see if we can get NX to work. Yeah, see, we don't have NX. PNPM install no scripts. Let's see if we can get that's RM node modules. Something is very, very broken here. Yeah, but the fact that she handled it got her really feel good. It does. Did you hear about the new layoffs at the big companies because of AI? I mean, again, yeah, I am hearing there's some interesting things in our industry, and I am hearing about the layoffs. There's a fascinating bit of research that came out recently, and I don't know if we talked about this on stream, but I was reading some research that says, is it npm install help? Let's just see here. Maybe I'm giving it the wrong. No frozen lock file, no verify store, aggregate output child dev dir fixed lock file, force help hoist pattern. Ignore that, ignore scripts. Okay, so it's pnpm install ignore scripts. So let's see what happens if we do this. And so the research shows that the companies that go to purely AI, about 42% of their code that's released experiences an incident, a production incident that requires a senior developer to fix. Then you have other companies that are coming out and they're saying things like, if you're using agentic flows, you need senior developers in the release pipeline to make sure that what you're releasing is good. If you have senior developers that make sure that the release pipeline is good, then, oh, come on. So we do have that, npm install. So we're getting this debug stuff. What is the debug stuff doing? I don't know what that is. It's a whole different error. So it doesn't know what MS is. I don't know what that is either. So let's go ahead and force this and just see what happens. Anyway, if you have a senior developer in the release pipeline verifying code, they're saying that AIs can make you about 10 times more productive. Which is why a lot of you out there as senior developers are probably seeing a huge uptick in your LinkedIn profiles. I'm getting people contacting me about my LinkedIn profile lately, which hasn't happened for, I would say, probably about 9 months. It's been mostly silent. But then we've got the big tech companies that are letting people go, and they're blaming it on AI. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not AI. They're blaming it on AI because it's easy to blame it on AI, right? There are things that are easy to blame it on. It's easy to blame it on like the current administration, and it's easy to blame things on AI right now, right? And when I say current administration, I'm talking any company, anywhere. They're going to blame it on the current political environment. That's an easy one to blame things on because people are easily swayed to be like, oh yeah, that guy's an idiot, regardless of who it is, right? I'm not saying anything about politics right now because I'm not that brave. I don't want to get into that. Um, but the other thing is AI. AI is very, very easy. You can just say, yeah, we're laying people off because of AI. Um, is it really AI? Probably not. They're probably protecting C-level exec bonuses. Um, auto prefixer? Okay. PNPM list auto prefixer. So auto prefixer is in there because of the dev dependencies. But let's ls node modules auto prefixer. That is so weird. The path cannot be traversed because that's the issue we were getting before. I want to see what causes this issue. Um, because I think, oh, look at this. All symlink junction traversals fail inside of warp. Is it warp that's the issue? Really? Oh. Have I been, has this been because of my terminal? That's gonna be angering. Let's bring up the terminal. Let's bring up terminal preview. Um, um, yeah, I mean, again, it's easier to blame trends. 100% you'll alternate. It is totally easier to blame trends. Dev we'll go here. No. Full stack dynos. We're gonna remove node modules. Actually, first of all, let's just see pnpm exec nx version. Holy crap. Let's rm node modules. I'm going to be a bit frustrated if I've been fighting warp this whole time thinking it's like my OS or it's PNPM or any other things. That one's really going to frustrate me. But yeah, it is easy to blame trends, and I think that's what we're seeing. It's so when these big companies do layoffs, if they provide a reason that resonates with people, people are like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? Screw AI, I hate that guy. Um, he's just taking jobs all the time, and uh, yeah, it just gets a bit frustrating, right? Last time we just yeah we did discuss start discussions about four model designs. We'll pick that up as we do this stuff in the background. Thank you for the reminder, Yo alternate. Let's sorry, Ole, you're not Yo alternate. Yo alternate. I'm sorry. Um, we'll get into this too because I really like the stuff that Angular has put together for signal forms. It's some of their best documentation they've ever done. Um, So we've gotten rid of that. Now let's just do a pnpm install. Let's just do a no frozen lock file here. And part of the reason I like warp is it remembers commands and workflows. But if it's going to break stuff, then I'm not interested. But I ran into a small problem. What if we want to edit a large DTO from the back end and it contains many IDs and nested arrays? That's interesting. That would make translating it back to the model far from easy. That's a good call out. Yeah, you're not wrong. Here, you'll alternate. Oh, look at that. And now everything just works. npm exec nx. I am glad I Googled that error. So now if I do NCU format group, we've got all this stuff. If I do a control R here, NCU, is there, I think it's F2? Yeah, okay. But anyway, so let's see if we can get the NX Angular to migrate. Actually, before we do that, let's do this. So it's telling me that there's a new PowerShell stable release 761. Great, so let's do that. So let's come here. I think I've got the PowerShell 7 installed. Holy cow, I'm way behind here. Is that true? Is that really? Oh, come on. So if I look for PowerShell and I look at my installed packages, yeah, I've got PowerShell 7 and PowerShell. So I've got those versions installed. Let's go to the Windows terminal. I thought I was using the terminal preview. And I can bring everything back. Actually, I think it's just Windows D, right? Oh, come on. That's my fault. So that, and that. So now if I hit Windows D, yeah, there we go. So here, which one is this one? That one's the wrong one too. Settings here. Windows PowerShell. Can I just add a new profile for Windows PowerShell? I don't want a duplicate one, a new empty profile. What if I just do PowerShell here? Still 755. But I know I've upgraded. I don't know. I'll stop with this. So we'll just go back to the terminal. Get that where it's supposed to be. Oh, I've minimized the chat and everything else too. That. And let's bring you back and you back. There we go. So I think the job market started to swing in the other direction, and there is a bit of that going on. Your alternate, you're not wrong at all. The job market is definitely it's definitely swinging back towards, what do we want to call it, like the pendulum we have, right? If we talk about, if we look at the job market as a pendulum, on this extreme, we've got like the employers, right? And on this extreme, we've got the workers. And, we've got this pendulum that swings back and forth between the two. And for a long time, it's been almost held over on this end, right? And it's been amazing for us as workers in the tech industry because, we get all these amazing benefits, we get amazing vacation, we get, right, like all of this stuff. Well, with AI, it's giving employers a chance to correct what they see as a problem, right? From our point of view, we love it when the pendulum's over here. The employer's point of view, they love it when it's over here and they can make you work 60 hours a week and pay you like an intern and all of that stuff, right? The reality is that probably the safest place for it to be for the health of the company and stuff is towards the middle. But we're definitely swinging this way. But employers have to deal with the negative consequences of, basically destroying somebody's livelihood, right? Laying them off. And people don't like it when they see people losing jobs because they're like, well, wait, if that guy can lose their job, what's keeping me from losing my job, right? And as it moves more and more this way, we get more and more towards the 80s where, people were just being fired for no reason and just crazy stuff like that. And then, 90s and Gen X came along and we just hated it all. And so things swung back. And then the tech revolution happened and things really swung towards the workers' side because you needed to bring in the best unicorns. And to attract the best unicorns, you needed to give the best benefits, and they had all the power. And right, well, now with AI, we've got a bit of a mess. So that's the way I see things right now. So I'm curious, if I do an NCU, or not an NCU, if I do a PNPM exec nx serve, and we do dynos dash API. Oh, I did ex, because of course I did. Does this serve? Does this work? If this works, then it was warp that broke things. Oh my gosh. Oh, nope. Prisma client. Okay, so we've still got an issue. So we've got an issue, but I'm curious if the issue is Prisma client index. So it's looking for index.js, Prisma client. So the module Prisma client has no exported member dinosaur, but the real issue is we can't find the module Prisma client index. And that's why we don't get the dinosaur, and that's why we are where we are. We're making progress. We're back to where we were last week. We could have been there from the very beginning of the stream, and I wouldn't have burnt all of my tokens trying to fix this. So why aren't you using Claude Code? I was using Warp and Claude Code in the beginning, and we can swap over to Claude. I've only got a free plan for Claude, and so I run out of tokens quickly. There is a package. What was it called? Open source agent tools. Or open source agentic CLI. Let's try that one. I'm trying to remember the name of this. There's Klein, there's Gemini CLI, but there was one that was completely open source, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Open code. Is it open code? Let me take a look at open code. Open code CLI. I think it might be. I think you're right, Yohalternate. Thank you for that. I was thinking about installing this. Open code CLI options and command. See, I hadn't installed anything because AI coding agent, it's available in a terminal-based interface, desktop app, or IDE. Prerequisite. Can we do open code? Oh, there it is, Windows. Oh, I have to use WSL. I need to get WSL up and going. Because the other one, CLI tool for Windows. Let's see what we get in Windows. Here we go. No WSL because I don't have it set up. So the VS Code integrated terminal, Windows terminal outside of VS Code. Git bash models know bash really well. Best CLI tools. I'm trying to think, like, I don't want to get into WSL either right now. Firecrawl CLI, GitHub CLI. I do have GitHub installed, and so we could do GH Copilot. We can install that and see what we're doing. Because I do know GitHub Copilot CLI is pretty good. I use it at work. I think it is open code. Do you trust the files in this folder? Yes. So here's I'm using GPT-5 Mini, and what I want to do, that's not what I want. Because I don't have a Copilot plan anymore. And so here, if we say create a plan to upgrade let's start with let's start with Nest.js, right? See, I don't know what model I'm connected to. I'm connected to GPT-5 Mini. But I know that there is an open source version, and I think it might be open code that you're talking about, Yo alternate. All Nest.js packages in the mono repo. See, I'm curious about select a model to use. What models do I have? See, I don't know what models I have available to me. I'd like to use Gemini, but I don't know that I can. Or we could use Claude, right? So asking user which Nest.js, I'd like to get to the latest stable. That sounds good. I mean, it's been telling us for a while. And it's making noises that are bugging me. I'm gonna turn off the desktop sound for you guys, so you guys aren't hearing the annoying beeping. um, but yeah, let's great. Target set to latest stable. Next steps: run the inventory, collect package JSON versions. Okay, so let's take a look at model. Yeah, so I'm gonna set it to auto. It looks like I'm just on a free version of GitHub CLI. Very curious here. GitHub Copilot alternatives. Open source Windows 11. Let's see what alternatives we have out there. And actually, I want GitHub Copilot CLI. Let's see what Shiva Shankar has to say. Shell GPT. Create a simple CLI. AI chat. Gorilla Warp. Like Warp, I would like to use Warp. I don't really want to pay for another plan. What I want, and I've got it in my history. I just don't want to dig through my history. Yo, alternatives. Angrily shaking fist. Exactly. But for now, we'll use GitHub CLI. It's using Claude Haiku 4.5 because I'm definitely on a free plan. So proceed with inventory. I'm just going to tell it to proceed. So let's see what kind of a plan it comes up with. I hate this beeping at me. So, oh, that reminds me. Did you guys see the stuff that Angular brought out about TypeScript and moving to TypeScript 6? I'm excited about that. I'm looking forward to. So TypeScript 6 is an interim. TypeScript 6 is an interim step on the way to TypeScript 7, which is completely rewritten in Go. I think I saw it on Twitter. I think. So inventory complete, medium high risk, major upgrade with breaking changes expected in GraphQL auth guards and decorator patterns. Great. I'm gonna just, for right now, let's exit because I want to take a look. And let's see if we can at least upgrade NX and Angular. And once we upgrade NX and Angular, then we can start taking a look at what I think we can do is use NX to upgrade Nest.js slowly. Because we're on version 10. So I'm curious if we can move Nest.js slowly and Prisma slowly and see what happens. So first thing I want to do is I want to do pnpm exec nx migrate latest. And let's just see if this works. You're using 6 in my version 22 preview signal forms repo that was used last stream. Yeah. How are you liking 6? Like, it's a much more strict version of TypeScript by default. And I think that's going to be... There are... Oh, migrations was run. Okay. So we're going to copy this and paste it. And then we're going to copy this. That's one of the things that I liked about Warp is that Warp would read these things. Seems same. Start a project upgraded from 5.9, so other than needing to eventually replace paths, it's the same. Yeah, the paths upgrade is an interesting one. What I'm thinking about is like the older projects, right? That have been on TypeScript for a long time and that have really let like any creep in and a bunch of the other stuff that's going to cause issues. Those are the ones that I'm curious about. And there seem to be, so like if you talk about like the Angular, if you talk about Angular upgrades, there are certain projects that are still on pre-Ivy versions of Angular because it was so difficult for them to get from where they were to the post-Ivy stuff, right? So you'll still see projects out there that are still on like Angular 13. You'll still see projects out there because the 8 to 9 jump was also significant. So you'll still see projects out there that are on Angular 8. I'm curious if this TypeScript 6 becoming more strict is going to force people to stay with TypeScript pre-6. And if they stay pre-6, that kind of cuts them out of upgrading other things too. Because potentially the upgrade could be too much. They don't want to do it. I don't understand that from my point of view. You know, that's why there are people still out there on AngularJS. They wrote a whole bunch of code in AngularJS. They can't get off of it. And that's basically a way to get stuck and now have to pay people like hero devs to provide you with fixes for Angular, AngularJS. And I'm not saying hero devs is bad. What I am saying is you've gone from using open source software where you're paying your devs and internal people to now having to pay an external company to help you maintain. That's a real risk that you take on when you stop migrating. Most of the 6 stuff was just default changes and a few easy win hard deprecations. They chickened out of actually soft deprecating use define for class fields. I get it, but I expected more. Yeah, hardcore. I agree with you there, Michael. They did chicken out, but I also think it was smart for them because the more hardcore they got, the more people, right? Like, again, if we look at if we look at upgrades, most upgrades are like a small bump in the road, but you get certain upgrades that wind up being kind of a chasm, right? And most teams are willing to overcome this bump in the road, right? There's no problem. Like, yeah, it's a little bit painful. It shakes us up a little bit, but right? And so these kind of upgrades are good. What happens is when you get this chasm and they've got to figure out, well, how do we get across this chasm, right? Do we bridge across it? right? This is me drawing a bridge with a trackball mouse. Do we bridge across it? Do we descend into it and then climb out of it, right? Do we build a plane that can fly, right? Like any metaphor that you want to take that's going to get you across this chasm. The problem is the wider you make this chasm, right? So, you know, if the chasm is wider and deeper, then more people, right? Like a lot of people are just going to be like, yeah, we don't have the skill or the desire. We're just going to set up camp here and live here with our cozy little campfire right on the edge of the chasm for as long as we can until we can't stay here anymore, right? The wider and deeper you make this chasm, the more people are going to remain here and the fewer people that are going to get over here. Anybody who starts over here is like, well, wait, why are they still over there, right? They don't realize that, hey, there's a huge chasm that they've got to overcome to get from here to here. And so, you know, I agree with you. I would have liked to have seen them be more hardcore. But the more hardcore they are, the deeper this chasm becomes and the wider it becomes. And that's the best way to explain it. That's kind of the way I like to explain this to senior management and stuff. And the thing is that once you camp out here, every bump and chasm that comes along in the future just makes this bigger and more difficult to do. And it becomes more and more cozy to stay here until, you know, I don't know, some monster or something decides to come along and eat everybody in your camp, right? You know, extending the metaphor way beyond where it's useful. But the reality is the longer you stay camped here, the more difficult it's going to be than if you got into, you know, getting across the chasm early. Yeah. Yo, Halternet, your coworkers need to talk more. it's like here's the thing. When you get to like an architectural level, when you get to a staff engineering level, when you get to you know, when you get to something that's at or above a team lead level, the stories and how you tell those stories often become more important than the tech and then the stories that we're telling, right? Or they become more important than the tech or the stuff we're trying to do, not the stories that we're telling. And the stories that you tell need to be they need to be tailored to the people that you're talking to, right? And I've been talking with people at work about this. One of my favorite YouTube channels takes an expert, maybe somebody who's an expert in like I don't know, space time, right? Something esoteric like that that's very, very difficult to understand, that you need a lot of understanding of various things like string theory, dark matter, all of this stuff. And they sit them down with like a 5-year-old first, and they have them explain a very, very difficult concept to a 5-year-old. And then maybe they move up to like a second grader, or maybe from there they move up to you know, somebody who's grade 6 or grade 7. And then maybe they move up to somebody who in the US we call a high schooler, in a lot of other places, right, college. And then from there they move up to somebody who is at a university level, and then maybe somebody who's PhD, right? And the experts in their field and the people who are truly good can make that transition seamless. They can provide information to somebody who has very little understanding very easily, and just as easily talk to one of their peers on the same level. But what they do is they change that description, right? Like this discussion about the chasm is the same discussion I'm going to have with, you know, with a C-level exec, a VP, we'll draw this chasm out and we'll talk about what it means to stay here. But we're not going to get into technical, right? The discussion is, if we stay here, it's not a good idea, and this is why, right? And it's in our best interest to build this bridge. It's in our best interest to, somehow get across this chasm, however we do it. And then they're like, okay, yeah, you've convinced me. I'm not going to talk about, are we going to bridge it? Are we going to repel it? Are we going to fly across it? Right? I'm not going to talk about that with a VP or a C-level exec. They don't care. All they care about is that, yeah, I've done my thinking and that I've convinced them, yeah, it's bad for us to stay here. That's all they care about, right? Then, when I go talk to, technical leadership, we're going to talk about, are we going to pick a bridge? Are we going to descend? Right? But again, we're not going to get deep into it. We're going to still stay high level. We're still going to use the metaphor of the chasm. We're still going to do that kind of stuff. When we start talking to architects, that's when we're like, great, we're going to do a bridge, right? We talk through the pros and cons of all of this stuff. We talk about, we don't have the time or the resources to build a plane. We really don't want to descend deep and climb back out. That just feels like a bad idea. We're going to build a bridge. All of the architects agree. We create documents talking about the bridge and how we're going to build the bridge. But then, we get into the engineers. And at the engineers, as an architect, it's my job to take that plan, which is the story, and tell them, yeah, the bridge is going to be wood on the bottom. We're going to use metal beams. We're going to have supports that look like this. We're going to get deep into it. And that's the job of somebody who's in leadership at a technical company, right? Or who wants to be in leadership. Your job is, people care much less about the code that you write, or how you write your code or things like that. They care much more that you can create convincing narratives like this and then influence people to make good choices, right? That's the other thing. Maybe building a bridge is a bad choice and descending is the right choice. You need to be able to make that decision, discuss it, and then influence people to follow it. The reality is sometimes people, right, you decided on a bridge, they want to go down and up. At some point, you just bite your pride and you just say, yeah, we're good. We're going to go down and up, and you support that decision, right? Because it's more important that we didn't decide to camp out here on the edge of the, right, of the crevasse, right? We didn't decide to stay here. We decided that we're going to move here and keep going forward. That's way more important than a bridge would probably be better, blah, 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 right? And then we devolve into arguing about this. And then eventually so much time has passed that we're just like, you know what? We're just going to camp out here. That's the right way to go. And so as you're moving up through your career, it's in your interest to learn how to influence people to get, right? The big influence win here is we decided we're not going to stay on this side of the chasm. We're going to keep moving forward. That's the win. That's what you got. Whether we build a bridge or whatever, hey, maybe you win, maybe you don't, but we still won. We're still over here while a lot of other people are staying over here. And so that's the piece that I really think is important for people who are interested in improving their career to understand. The more wins that you can get moving to the other side of a chasm like this, right? The more that you can influence people to make good decisions, and they look back and they're like, oh man, I'm so glad we didn't stay on that side of the chasm. Ola did such a good job convincing us to move along. They're going to forget the discussion and the arguments that happened over how we got across, but everybody's going to be glad that we're not stuck over here as we look at other people who are stuck there. And they're starting to have to pay for whatever, right? Because if you look at hero devs, what hero devs is basically doing is they're allowing you to build fortifications that allow you to stay safe in this little area where you chose to remain. The problem with that is those fortifications have to get higher and higher. And again, I'm not saying anything bad about that. I think they do something amazing. They allow teams who get stuck here to be safe while stuck here, right? As all the zombies and monsters and whatever over here try to come overrun their little camp, right? For our metaphor, they're doing amazing work. The problem is the higher these walls get, the harder it is to keep moving, and the chasm just keeps growing and growing, and then you don't see future issues, and you just get really, really comfy here until this is kind of your world, right? And it gets more and more expensive to maintain these walls that keep getting higher and higher. But anyway, that's my soapbox about migrations. And why it's important to stay up on migrations, and why it's important to keep moving forward, and why it's good for you to be able to have that influence and be able to convince people that moving forward is a good idea. And I don't know, we can keep talking, right? Like there are different kinds of influence that you have. And you rely on different kinds of influence as you get more and more effective at your career. In the very, very beginning, you're going to rely on borrowed influence. And by borrowed influence, that's basically you pinning like a sheriff's badge to your chest. And when you walk in as a representative of whatever that badge stands for, right? You walk in as a representative of the leadership, and it's the leadership that has the power. You're a representative of the leader, and so people have to listen to you, because if they don't listen to you, then leadership will step in, and that's not good for them, right? That's kind of what a sheriff's badge says, right? You've been given power by whatever government to be able to make decisions, and the real power behind your decisions, right? Especially like if you think about like the Wild West, a sheriff was a lone person out in the middle of nowhere, but that sheriff's badge had the backup of like armies from the federal government and things like that. That's kind of your borrowed influence. You're stepping in, and it's that badge that you wear on your chest that allows you to influence others. The next form of influence is your own influence. And that influence grows as you make good decisions with the borrowed influence that you have. As people recognize that, hey, this person leads us to good places. This person makes good decisions. We should trust them. They no longer look for that badge on your chest. They're just like, oh, here comes Michael. Michael makes good decisions. Let's listen to what he's got to say, right? Now Michael has his own influence, and he borrows less from the influence of the leadership. You're always going to have a little, borrowed influence. You're always going to have a little personal influence, right? And then there is a third form of influence, and that influence comes when you have actual power. And that's the influence that's the most easy to abuse, right? And a good example of that is parents, right? Parents have power. They have power over the lives of their children. And that power allows them to influence the lives of their children. And if you ever had an argument with your parents and the argument ended when they said, because I said so, I'm not saying anything about your parents, because I've ended arguments that way myself. Sometimes the kid just won't see reason. They're more interested in their own selfish desires, and sometimes you just have to be like, because I said so, right? So I'm not saying that that's wrong, but it's easy to abuse that because I said so power, right? Because I'm bigger than you, because I pose a threat to you, because I have, I control whether or not you eat, I have power over you, and I can abuse that power. The problem with power abuse and influence abuse is that eventually, especially when you look at like parents, right? The reason I chose that is it's very easy for a child to become much stronger than their parents, especially as they become teenagers and their parents become older. And if the only influence you hold over your child is that you're bigger than them, well, eventually they get bigger than you, right? If the influence that you wield it in such a way that the child doesn't want to have anything to do with you, well, good luck seeing your grandkids, right? And that's the way I look at also work influence, right? As you get power, if you wield that power in such a way that as soon as people no longer are affected by the way you wield that power or influence, then you've got a problem, right? So you've got, borrowed influence, you've got your own influence, and then you've got positional or influence that's just because of who you are, your power, whatever you have. There's a balance of the three. I would tend to argue that the most effective leaders are the ones who have most of their power concentrated in themselves, right? They aren't leaning on their positional power. They aren't leaning on their borrowed power. People trust them. They've built trust and people listen to them. That's where you get, industry influencers. When you talk about, if you walk into any Angular space, right? And you mentioned Deborah Kurata. Deborah Kurata has a ton of influence. Why? Because she's an effective teacher and she's built that influence over time. Her influence doesn't come from, borrowed influence from Angular. The Angular team definitely would support her. Maybe not in everything, but they're definitely going to support her, right? Her position doesn't give her a whole bunch of power, but people listen to her because she's built that personal influence and that personal power. Right? There are other people that I look at in that space too, but she's a very visible one. But there are definitely people who have built that influence and that power to be able to help influence others to make good decisions because they have a track record of making good decisions. And so, when we talk about work and things like that, building that trust and that base of influence that allows you to help others make good decisions is a good way to move forward. Met Deborah at NGConf 25, somehow nicer than I could imagine. You are not wrong. Deborah is one of the nicest people I've met. So the first time I met Deborah in person, this is crazy, right? I'm like, if we compare our audiences and our influence, my influence versus Deborah Kurata, I don't even rate. I'm not even on the scale, right? Her influence and her audience is massive. I'm in the breakfast line and I just hear, "Hey, Jason, how you doing?" And I look up and it's Deborah. I'm like, holy crap. One, how does this person know who I am? Two, holy crap, one of my heroes is talking to me. Three, what do I say so I don't sound like an idiot, right? We sat down and we had an amazing breakfast at NGConf where we talked and just had a good time. She was very, very friendly. But it's that personal touch, right? The fact that she said, hey, and reached out, and here I was in my own world thinking about who knows what, and to just have somebody say hi, it was a highlight of the conference for me. So I'll bet, Michael, it was a good experience for you too. I really enjoy talking to her, and the people who build that kind of influence, where they have personal trust and personal influence, they're the kinds of people that people say, oh yeah, that's a good person. You should talk to them. They're friendly. They listen, right? People who lean too much on borrowed influence or their positional influence, right? Their own power. People who lean too much on that, they don't get the comments of, oh yeah, that person's a nice person. Maybe, who knows? But the people who build their own personal influence, definitely, you're going to hear, oh yeah, they're a nice person. I enjoy talking to that person. You're going to hear stuff like that. Anyway, we're off talking about random stuff again, because what would one of my streams be if we weren't random, right? And thank you guys for the questions. I appreciate them. They mean a lot. Um, I was talking to, what do we add to NX polygraph and NX poly self-healing? Oh, interesting. So we're adding a bunch of ignored stuff. Agents, this stuff got fixed up. Migrations, so they added this stuff. Okay. Added missing inputs to ESLint executor. Interesting. NXJSON, they added default twice. Why? Why? Oh, this is a, it's got the hat saying it depends on default, right? It's not the defaults in here twice. It's saying that, hey, we have to wait for default, I think. I think that's what that one means. So let's go ahead and commit this NX upgrade. But yeah, I was talking to some people at work, and we were specifically talking about influence. And it's important for us to understand we were talking about influence and then speaking to other people. And somebody brought up one of the most uncomfortable things you can do. And that is talk to a group of people that you want to be interactive, but they're not interactive. They're just silent, right? And in that case, you're like, man, have they just checked out? Have they, I don't know, do they not understand? Is my content too beneath them that they don't want to interact? Right? Like there's so many things going through your head. And when I think back to the first few months, like probably the first 6 to 8 months of streaming, it was legit me sitting here um, pushing myself to continue streaming. I would get a couple of comments every once in a while from different people who popped in, and I really appreciated that. I really appreciate you guys popping in and just commenting and saying stuff during the stream, and helping to guide the direction that the stream is going. It means a lot that I'm not here just talking to myself going, oh, look, there's people watching, but are they really watching? Are they asleep? Who knows what they're doing? So I appreciate that, and thank you guys very, very much for that. Um, so we just upgraded NX. I could have done this before the stream if I had realized that it really was warp that was the problem. I'm actually very disappointed in that. Because I do like the warp terminal a lot. I'm hoping that they figure it out. But let's get Angular upgraded. This week I'm in the office, but I want to get out of these upgrade things. I want to get into what Ole brought up about. I want to talk about form decisions. And I want to get into custom forms for our application, and I want to get things fixed up and working. We've got to get things fixed up and working before we can start talking through this stuff, especially the form model design, because I like the stuff that they talked about here and things about state management, right? And what their thinking is and how they think it should work. I highly recommend that you guys take that link that Ole posted earlier and just go read through everything in signal forms from top to bottom. Even if you aren't using them, if you don't plan to use them, the information here very closely aligns with my beliefs on how state should be managed in a UI. And I really like that. I converted a form with a few controls to work with both reactive forms and signal forms using the new CVA for signal forms. Worked nice, not in prod, but on a temp branch. Yeah, CVA, control value accessor for people out there. There's a new control value accessor um, that allows signal forms to access stuff that work with reactive forms and vice versa. It would also work for template forms with that new CVA, with that new control value accessor. So that's very cool. There's also 3 docs in progress in PRs by Ben Hong, including testing. And that sounds awesome. The testing document is one that I'm very excited about. Because testing this stuff is going to be very, very important. And testing it in a way that you allow the form to remain a black box and you don't give your tests too much information about what you're testing. It's going to be a big deal. So I'm still so frustrated. Last week we spent a good portion of the stream fixing something that was really a warp error. This week, oh well. Oh well. So pnpm exec nx migrate at Angular CLI, perfect. Seems very testable without injection context if you define your schemas as regular old TS outside of an injection context. That's so. I'm currently working on an interesting project with my eye forward to signal forms. And that project involves using standard schema validation for Nest.js, and then using that standard schema validation to drive the UI. And in fact, one of the interesting things is if we look here, we're moving to Nest 11. There is a Nest.js standard schema library. Let's see if we can find it. This is it right here. And I'm curious about this one because I haven't seen this one yet. So there's the Nest.js standard schema. This Lancelot. So I'm probably going to have to take a look at this one too. But the one that we were looking at on Friday as we were talking through this is this Nest.js standard schema, and I can share both of these with you guys in the chat. Let's do that. So for those of you who aren't aware, standard schema is there's a whole bunch of validation libraries out there, and there's a specification called the standard schema specification, and the standard schema specification gives libraries like Zod and I use Zod, so I always think of Zod, but like Zod and Valabot, right? The 2 big ones. There are other ones in here, like Yup and Joy. Right? There's a whole bunch of ones that follow the standard schema specification. And Angular in signal forms adopted the standard schema specification. Well, if we look at this, if we write standard schema specifications for our backend validation for a Nest.js backend, and we're using a monorepo, well, why not put those validations in a library? And then we can use those validations for the Nest.js backend, but we can also use those validations for the Angular front end with signal forms. And that way our forms can rely on the exact same code that we're using in the backend because we're using standard schema to do both. Zod works in the backend and the front end. So our forms can have the markup that we need and our backend can have the validation that it needs, right? Yeah, exactly, Michael. And so this is something that I've been thinking about very heavily because I've been thinking a lot about vendor lock-in, right? And I've been talking a lot about Zod, but what if Zod does something predatory? Or what if Zod is dropped and is no longer maintained? Or what if Zod, you know, gets compromised? Or who knows what, right? What happens when we can't use Zod anymore? Well, we could move to Valibot or whatever, right? If we're using standard schema in our Angular, and in our backend. And so I found this, but this comment was an interesting comment for me. So it's listed as the default feature of Nest.js 12 and no longer maintained. So in Nest.js 12, standard schema is being added by default. So we no longer need the class validator of Nest.js, or that we use in Nest.js and Nest.js 12. We can use standard schema. So what if we took all of our Angular dynos, moved them into a library, and use that library to validate our backend and front end? And there's some really cool stuff about this, right? Like there's the validation at the route level. It will create DTO classes for you to transfer them across. So you get DTO classes with this. There's pipes that you can use. They're using Valibot here to do the validation and do stuff. You can do response serialization. This piece right here, when you work in fintech, stripping sensitive fields and making sure they don't make it to the client is a big deal. With this standard serializer interceptor that they created in this library, they then created an object that only has the ID and name. Right here, they're using the interceptor, the standard serializer interceptor. So when they return what's found by this find one, even if it returns everything like email, password, and all sorts of stuff, this serializer interceptor is going to intercept it. It was set up to only use the name and ID, right? This user response schema. So they're using the user response DTO. I think there might be a bug in here because I think this should be using, oh no, here's the DTO. So they're creating a standard DTO from the schema that they created. So this response DTO in conjunction with the serializer makes it so that when this return happens, the interceptor fires and it removes everything but ID and name. This is an opt-in, meaning that in the future, if they added social security number, if they added government ID, if they added any sort of information, any sort of PII that might get you on like a list in the EU and you have to start doing, right? You don't have to worry about that because all you're going to get is the stuff that you've opted into. This was huge. So Nest, right, with this Nest stuff, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. So finding this library was really, really huge. And then the added benefit of being able to have Zod libraries that can be used back end and front end, that's a big deal. that takes a whole bunch of work out of the front end, right? You just do a standard schema validation. Maybe you add some stuff to enable or disable fields. Maybe you add some custom error messages, who knows? But all of that stuff is trivial to do in Zod. And suddenly you've got front end validation that matches your back end validation through a single library. And that's been kind of like the holy grail of front end and back end development for a long time. And I really think this Nest.js standard schema library is going to be an interesting way for us to explore that in the project that I'm working on. And I think it's going to be something that'll be interesting for us to explore on stream. And so I want to bring this in and validate this with you guys too, right? We're going to be doing the same validation, but being able to validate it on stream and show you guys that, hey, there's some really cool stuff with Angular and Nest.js that we can do. So I'm very excited about that too. And this standard validation, I should share this with you guys too. Just the fact that Angular embraced standard validation in signal forms makes signal forms head and shoulders above every other form out there, every other form library for Angular out there. So very, very excited about this. So we upgraded the Angular CLI. There were no migrations to run. Great. We're going to pnpm exec nx migrate at Angular, and we're going to hit F2. We're going to grab core. And I guess I'm going to need to learn the terminal commands that I had added to it a while ago, or remember them. Luckily, they're coming back. And I got so much sleep last night. I went to bed at like 10:30 and woke up at 8:30. How much does that wind up being? That's like 10 hours of sleep. So that's a lot of sleep for me, considering most nights I get like 5.5 to 6. So yeah, I got quite a bit of sleep last night. So maybe my brain is firing better today. So we need to upgrade schematics. Angular, everything else here I'm going to leave alone because I want to get into the Nest.js migration. So we'll do that. So pnpm exec nx migrate. And here we're going to go schematics. If I wind up, I don't know, there are a couple of things that I'm thinking about. Now we can do the pnpm install. No frozen lock file. I may find a shell that works open source, because if I can point that shell to a token that I've got for the only one, I'm not paying for OpenAI right now. I'm not paying for Copilot right now. I do pay for Gemini. I looked at paying for Claude, but man, Claude is expensive, and Claude is very finicky on the lower level plans. So I'm fine just staying free with Claude. But I would like a CLI version of just a CLI version that we can that runs agents that we can run in the CLI, because quite often, you know, VS Code and Antigravity and all the other big ones, their terminal can die, right? If the terminal gets too big, because they're trying to keep it all in memory and in context and stuff like that. So I would like a terminal CLI. I use GitHub Copilot at work because everything we do is Copilot. And So I do use one at work quite a bit. And that's why I would like to have one here. So there we go. So we've got our upgrade to Angular and NX, and I am very frustrated that it was the terminal. Like we were getting that symlink error last week, and I should have looked it up then, because that's what would have led us to the fact that it was the terminal, and we wouldn't have wasted so much time today. But that's okay. Let's go ahead and we're gonna close all the stuff here. And over here, let's get a new conversation. And this conversation is currently Prisma is broken. What steps should I take to upgrade Prisma and Nest.js? So let's see what Claude thinks about this. I expect us to run out of tokens. So I like that it's looking for breaking changes. So it's looking at Nest.js. What I do want to do is it didn't pick up that we're using NX. And so I'm a little bit concerned about that, but let's see what we get back first. And then from there, we'll figure out how we want to proceed. This is where I really think having developers with experience, and this is one of the things that scares me a little bit about the current state of the industry, is we need developers out there who understand the tooling. The problem is that right now, with the abilities of AI and the confidence, the way that AI speaks confidently, you need somebody who can critically think about what to do, right? And who understands what's being said. We didn't get anything. We didn't get anything here that talks about NX, right? So as a senior, my job is like, how does this plan change, knowing that we have NX in the mix, right? Basically prodding Claude like, hey, you forgot NX. And so there's NX migrations. Good question. Let me check the NX configuration and NX Next compatibility, right? And so now it's looking at what we can do with NX. And while it's working on that, we can look at the plan that it had. So it wanted to do Prisma 5.81, Nest to 11, Nest.js testing, Nest.js schematics is already at 11, Nest.js GraphQL needs to be 13 for Nest 11, right? Nest.js Apollo needs to be 13, Nest.js Swagger needs to be 8. Open questions, how far do you want to go? We'll answer this question. We're going to go to Prisma 7, but we're going to go 6 to 7. Prisma 5 to 6, so it's talking about this. But see here, it's running pnpm Prisma commands, and we want it to run nx commands. So the plan is updated. Here are the key insights NX adds, how NX changes things. NX migrate for Nest.js, not manual package JSON edits, perfect. So it picked that up. Nest 22, or since you're already on NX 22, already targets Nest.js 11. NX knows exactly which Nest.js packages to migrate. This is idiomatic NX upgrade path. Manual for Prisma. Prisma add Prisma 6. Prisma has no NX plugin. NX knows nothing about it. Okay, so we'll have to do Prisma ourselves. Nest.js, we can. This is wrong. This is very wrong because we ran the NX migrate latest and it didn't migrate Nest. But we can tell it to migrate Nest. We want to migrate we want to migrate Prisma to 7, going 5 to 6 to 7. So we're going to get that plan too. So we'll get this all upgraded. Prisma 7 is a major architectural change. ESM only, new driver adapter, new Prisma config. That's going to be a big piece of work. So we'll start with the Nest.js. And then move forward from there. And it's still building this plan. While it's working on that plan, let's go here and let's just do, let's look at the format group, right? And so there we go. It's run everything here. So Prisma 5 to 6 to 7 and Nest 10 to 11. Prisma is targeting 7 versus 5, 6, 7. Nest.js 10, 3, 0, targeting 11. Prisma 7 is architecturally different. Prisma 7 is not just a bump version. Okay. Affected files total. Prisma service. So we're going to have to make some changes here. User review required. ESM versus CJS, Nest.js context. Nest.js with SWC core is used here, runs as CommonJS by default. Prisma 7 ships as ESM. The recommended approach for Nest.js is to use output and the Prisma schema pointing to a local path, and to keep imports as CJS compatible TS path imports, not setting type module in the root package JSON, which would break Nest and NX. The plan below takes this approach. So that's really cool. It's good that it figured out the ESM versus CommonJS, right? So ECMAScript modules versus CommonJS modules. Staging is essential. Each phase has a working buildable state as its exit criterion. Do not skip the V6 stage and jump straight to V7. The V6 to V7 jump is a heavy one. The V5 to V6 gap lets us land safely first. Love that call out. No open questions. Proceed to staged Prisma upgrade and NX migrate for Nest.js. So Prisma 5 to 6, no schema changes needed. The dinosaur model has no implicit many to n, right? M to n relations, no bytes fields, no full text search, no not found usage. The phase is essentially just a package version bump. Perfect. So we're going to do that. So this is a pretty easy migration here, actually. Let me just make sure that, yep, everything's committed. We're going to run this command here. So we're going to copy this. We're just going to run it. And let's see what happens. 6, 7. I definitely have teenage kids. There. What was I watching? There was some YouTuber who was talking about like historians studying us in the future. And just like all the numbers that you can't say, right? And they've got kids in class raising their hands and they're like, why did people in the past always say nice after saying 69? Or why is 420 such a common randomly chosen number? And why did elementary teachers ban counting to 10? And just stupid stuff like that. And you know, the teacher's like 6, 7, and the kids are like, what does that even mean? It's like, we don't know. So yeah, it was I don't know, I found it hilarious, but can't reach database server. Uh-oh. Oh. Oh. Yep. Docker. That was yesterday. As a father, I'm contractually obligated to embarrass my children. All right, give me just a second. But yeah, I'm contractually obligated to embarrass my children. Oh, we're back. Okay. And part of that contractual obligation is to do that in public places. So yesterday, after my daughter danced, I gave her a hug and in front of her friends told her that her team ate and left no crumbs. Which, hey, what's up, Abradores? Which, as somebody of my age saying that is incredibly cringe. And poor girl. So everything from Prisma Migrate failed. Generated the Prisma client. But let's make sure that we get the migrate and all of that stuff. So let's get this. But it's my job to just be cringe. I got some new jobs. Job 1 is Vue.js and it's garbage. Job 2 is React, Next.js, and I'm going forward. Job 3 will be an Angular Spring job. We'll probably be doing Angular. Job 3 will start May 4th. Holy crap. So now you have 3 jobs? Dude, I don't know how you could do 3 jobs. That is an impressive amount of jobs. A very impressive amount of jobs. Let's go ahead and pop this open right now. Yeah, yeah, you can't doing 4 jobs. You're going to be one of those guys who is outsourcing his work to like, I don't know, some outsourcing company, right? Doing a bunch of his work on AI and making a ton of money, working like 5 jobs and spending most of his day at the beach. And I'm going to be jealous. The Italian fiscal system is stopping me from making more money because they will tax me more. Welcome to the real world, my friend. PNPM exec NX serve Dino's API. It must be difficult to be on the point of making so much money that your government's preventing you that. It's a 10-second video. Can I show you a video very quick? Check Discord. Am I on Discord right now? Let me pop open Discord. Give me just a second. Where is Discord? I thought I was on Discord. I hate that Teams is, if you install it at all, it just shows up. Let me pull up my Discord. Okay. Abra Lourdes. Dude. My dude, is that your room? Wow. That's crazy. That is very crazy. Yeah, I got some new monitors because I'm using a new PC for every job. So I have 3 PCs and 6 monitors. Do you mind if I show that? That's crazy. How can I show that? I'll wait till you say anything before. A new Mac Mini M4. That's cool. You don't mind? Okay. You guys. Oh, this is crazy. Let me. How can I do this? Let's see if I can move this over here. There we go. So this is the video he just sent me. I was like, okay, it looks pretty normal. And then it just kept going. Oh, wow. That was impressive. Very, very impressive. It looks much better than my setup. Let's see. I don't know if I've shown you guys my setup. Let's see here. So this is what I stream off of, and that's my work stuff over there, and it's hard to turn that. So very, very impressive. Very, very impressive setup there. Another split keyboard that needs to arrive in Germany for like $300. Man, that's awesome. That is very awesome. Okay, so we've got, well, look at that. Nest now runs. So that Prisma migration allowed Nest to run. So now if we do a pnpm nx serve Angular dynos, this is probably a good place to stop for the day. I want to get all of this stuff upgraded this week, and that was my goal last week. It didn't happen. I'm going to try again this week. So let's see. And I know Michael was threatening to post sexy pictures until I do a midweek stream. Him posting pictures of himself doesn't bother me. So if you want to keep posting pictures of yourself, man, keep going. No, I want to get this stuff done, but here we are. We're now able to check out that everything works as expected. We're able to go in and out. We're able to filter by having feathers and no feathers. So a couple lessons learned today. Number one, it was warp that was causing my headaches. I thought it was Windows. It wasn't Windows. It was warp. Number two, the Prisma upgrade to version 6 fixes things. So we're good there. And I think Prisma broke because of all the stuff I was trying to do to fix the issues with warp. However, I think it's in our best interest to get to Nest.js 11 because I do want to get to, where is it? Oh, here we go. I do want to try this out. I want to see what we can do with this. And get some validation in place that uses this library so that we can be positioned for Prisma 12. So I want to take a look at this too and add that in place. Our Prisma 5 to 6 was drop-in like it said. Our Nest.js 10 to 11 do not run pnpm install before nx migrate finishes. Run install only after nx has written its migrations JSON. Yeah. This is wrong. It didn't. So what we can do, and maybe, like this one should be fast too, so we'll get to phase 3, and then we can do phase 3 during the week, because I think this one's going to be the bigger issue. There's so much here to fix. But let's see if we can get the Nest.js 10 to 11 to go. If it breaks, I'm going to stop, and we'll call it there. But so yes, we'll terminate this batch job. Go ahead and terminate this batch job. So there we go. So here we know that the NX migrate latest doesn't work because we ran that in the beginning. And if we look at our NCU, we're still on Nest.js 10. We want to be on 11. So let's just do pnpm exec nx migrate, and we're going to go at Nest.js core here. And then we're going to see after that one migrates what we need to do from there, because we've got this handy table, right? So Nest.js common and core should be above 11. Swagger should be above that. It's not grabbing Apollo, which it should be doing. It even called out Apollo up here. It called out Apollo somewhere, saying that Apollo, we needed to upgrade Apollo because it wasn't compatible anymore. So there are no migrations to run from this migration, really? So let's take a look at the format group again. So we need Nest.js common config, man, pnpm exec nx migrate at Nest.js/common. Nest.js/common. We'll get that one upgraded. I mean, there's so much in here, and I want to get all of this stuff fixed. But even like Apollo client, Apollo server, I think Nest.js Apollo will probably pick a lot of that up. So that one worked. And this is so NCU. We're just gonna go at, and we'll just do this. pnpm exec nx migrate at Nest.js/Apollo. We've got config, GraphQL, Platform Express, Swagger, testing. And then I think we're in a good place. At Nest.js/config. Oh, there's even a Nest.js schematics we're going to need to upgrade. pnpm exec nx migrate at Nest.js/schematics. Do I not have? I thought I had NX Nest.js. Maybe I don't have that installed. Let's come over here and just do package.json. And so there's Angular. So there's NX. Yeah, there's NX Nest. which is weird that we're just not getting these migrations. I'm worried that we're missing some migrations. But we'll power forward it, and if we need to run migrations, we'll figure out how to do that. So we got Nest.js, GraphQL. Nest.js/GraphQL. And then we'll do Platform Express, Swagger, and testing. And that should be everything. We haven't had a package JSON or migrations dot. See, there's no migrations to run. There are no migrations to run. There are no migrations to run. That's a little concerning to me with a major version bump. And again, no migrations to run. pnpm exec nx migrate Platform Express. And maybe it just works. I was helping my fiance move something from a different room, but I heard my name. What did I do? So your alternate told me that you were posting sexy pictures until I do a midweek stream. Nx migrate at nest.js / swagger and then testing. So that should be all of the Nest.js stuff, and then I definitely need to end. I did say week 1 of saying that anyone reading this should troll Jason during the live stream, starting on the hour with Angular questions and until he joins Blue Sky. Yeah. Here's, I have a Blue Sky account. I'm being lazy. I'll be honest with you here. It takes a lot of effort to get a group from one social media platform to another, and you're going to lose people. So I've just been lazy and stuck with Twitter. I do have a Blue Sky account. I just haven't done anything with it. I don't know. Maybe I should think about something with that, right? But it's just all laziness. I'll be completely honest with you. So here, if we do pnpm exec nx serve the Dynos API, if everything's broken, the stream's over, you guys. It's all working. I want something very similar to the fish shell for completions. Something fuzzy that I don't have to bring up. That just looks at my history and does fuzzy searches. Oh no. Address already in use. Port 3000. Oh, it's trying to run the Nest application. Did I serve the wrong application here? pnpm exec nx serve. I did Angular dynos, not the dynos API. I was like, wait, well, yeah, of course, port 3000 is already in use. It was being used by the other. Well, it looks like things are working, maybe. Um, so if I bring up the console, let's just refresh. Yeah, so it looks like we got all of our dynos. If we run our filter, yeah, we're getting 2 dinosaurs back, no feathers, perfect. If we edit our Diplodocus and we give our Diplodocus feathers, the save button doesn't work. The save button doesn't work. Why doesn't the save button work? Okay. So that's what we will need to figure out in the UI. I want to get to Prisma 7, so we'll do that midweek. But I'm going to end here. Thank you guys, everyone, for being here. It was a lot of fun. We'll finish the Prisma migration. We've got a bunch of other stuff that we need to take a look at also. I'm not sure why me hitting Control C there pops over to another tab. That's a weird one. But if we take a look, there's a bunch of stuff in here that's probably good for us to get all upgraded and all cleaned up. So we'll get that all cleaned up and updated. The Apollo client and server and the GraphQL code gen. Spectator, we're 6 versions behind. Prisma client, that's what we'll take a look at next. And then at the end, maybe we'll take a look at TypeScript version 6 upgrades. Yeah, that's what we have in store. And then next week, Ole, I really want to get into the document that you shared today. I want to talk about designing models and stuff like that, and just give you guys my take on that. So we'll do that next Sunday. But I definitely want to get this stuff done middle of the week. So you guys have a great rest of your week. We'll see.